If you're thinking about buying a new electric car, there's a strong chance you're probably considering one of these two vehicles, the Tata Nexon EV or the Mahindra XUV400. In fact, this is a Nexon EV Max, which means the claim range is almost similar on both these cars, 453 kilometers, 456 kilometers. But which one of these two should you consider? We are trying to help you simplify.
One of these is an immensely successful product. In fact, it is India's highest selling electric car. Another, a kind of a newbie, but one that generated enough excitement in the market even before its launch earlier this year. The latter is much bigger, while the former well and truly a sub 4 meter car. You get 16-inch wheels on either of them, but tires on the Nexon are a bit wider. Both look quite different from each other, but come with some unique elements. While it's all about blue on the Nexon, satin copper is the color of choice for Mahindra. Talking about overall design, it is the XUV that has always appealed more even on iced versions, and safe to say that even in EV form it looks more attractive. Crucially, the charging port on the SUV is on the front, which makes it more practical to use when compared to the Nexon. But step inside and the tables turn.
The cabin of the Nexon EV Max pretty much similar to its iced counterpart. I like the fact that they've used a lot of light beige colors inside the cabin. Just suits the electric feel a lot more when compared to the all black cabin of the XUV400. And even in terms of features, the Nexon races ahead when compared to the 400. So you get features like electric parking brake, you get ventilated front seats, you also get cruise control in this car. And between these two cars, you will find these features only on the Tata vehicle.
You also get a wireless charger, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, along with IRA connected car technology. The instrument cluster is part digital, part analog, much like the XUV, and you get a nice big rotary selector to change modes. The recently launched Dark edition of the car gets a bigger 10-inch touchscreen system, which we hope will soon find a way to other variants of the SUV too. The second row gets AC vents, which the XUV misses out on.
Some of new age features seen on some recent cars from Mahindra like the Scorpio N are sort of missing here in the XUV400. And for a car that was launched in 2023, that's a bit of a disappointment. However, what I like is the fact that in the touchscreen system, you have a dedicated menu for the EV settings. So you get a lot of relevant information while driving this car when it comes to electric drivetrain. What I also like is this futuristic looking gear lever that's new in a car in Mahindra, looks nice and is good to hold and use too.
Here too, you get a connectivity suite called the Mahindra BlueSense Plus that comes with more than 60 features along with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Space is a major advantage in the XUV400. It is not just longer than the Nexon but taller and wider too. Wheelbase also is much bigger, and that directly translates into a more spacious and comfortable second row. Boot space is slightly higher too, so it is the XUV that races ahead in this department. Time now to drive both these SUVs, and let's begin by telling you how do they compare when it comes to numbers.
The size of the battery packs is pretty much similar on both these cars, but that is where the similarity ends, because what you get on the Mahindra is a much higher peak torque figure. So when you're driving the Tata, you do feel that the initial thrust you're looking for is somewhat missing on this car. You have different driving modes here. You have the Sport, you have the City, you have the Eco mode as well. And it is very easy to choose them also, because the buttons are very conveniently located right next to the gear lever, as opposed to the 400 where the buttons are placed on the dashboard. And not only that, along with these drive modes, you can also choose between different levels of regeneration. So you have 3 different levels of regen, and you can also choose to completely disable it and not have any regen on the car. And these help you in getting a better range or a more sporty behavior, whatever you want from your vehicle, depending on the distance that is left to be driven. And that's a good thing, because as a driver, it leaves you with a lot of options. You feel much more involved in driving the car, and it's not really automated. The control is much more in your hands on the kind of feel you want to get from the car.
However, the rotary knob, while it looks great, isn't the fastest and takes some time to respond. But that isn't the case with the regen or mode switches. So how different does the XUV400 feel when driven straight after the Nexon EV?
The XUV400 does give you that big car experience. You get a feel of driving a much bigger car. The view of the road is quite clear and you like that as a driver. The A-pillar doesn't really obstruct your view and you get a nice clear 180-degree view of the road ahead. So you don't really get regen modes here like the Nexon EV Max, but what you get are 3 drive modes, and the good thing is that there is considerable difference between these 3 modes. Especially when you go from fast to fearless, you get a feeling that you're sitting in a completely different car. It becomes quicker, it becomes more agile, and as a driver you like that a lot. A very important feature that you do not get on the Nexon EV Max but you do get on the XUV400 is single pedal driving, and that really aids in saving some range on the vehicle, especially if you're struggling to reach a particular place and very little battery is left. You can always switch to that mode and ensure a longer range on the vehicle. So just switch the gear lever to the L mode and the single pedal driving gets activated on the car, and trust me, when you're facing range anxiety, it's a great feature to have on your vehicle.
We will tell you about the battery consumption of both the SUVs a little later in the video, which will give you an idea on how having different drive and regen modes makes a difference to the driving behavior. But for now, let's get back to the Tata Nexon EV Max and talk about its dynamics.
Now this is a sub 4 meter SUV and the compact dimensions do aid you in giving a much better drive. Especially around corners, this car gives you a lot more confidence. So the sporty feel you're looking for is enhanced much more on the Nexon EV Max.
But the Mahindra doesn't lag too far behind.
One more thing that impresses on the XUV400 is its ride quality. Suspension seems like it's tuned nicely to face the different road conditions. And even though the Nexon EV Max feels like a better handling car when it comes to ride quality or the comfort the occupants get, the 400 feels slightly better. Now just to give you a quick idea of the state of charge, right now the battery percentage left on the Nexon EV Max is around 44% and the range that is showing is 128 kilometers. And we haven't exactly driven in a very conservative way. There's been a lot of sporty driving as well across different modes. So as of now, 44% and 128 kilometers before the batteries get discharged.
The Mahindra XUV400 meanwhile showed a range of 151 kilometers with 50% charge remaining, where most of the driving was done on fun mode with the AC on. Eventually, with 22% battery remaining, the car had already crossed 200 kilometers on the trip meter.
Now there are 2 very important features that you would really like on your car, especially if you love to drive, and those are hill hold and traction control. And both these features you'll only find on the Nexon EV Max. They are not there on the Mahindra XUV400. So as a driver in different situations, you just feel a little more confident while driving this SUV.
But underbody protection is much better on the Mahindra, while on the Nexon a lot of things are left exposed, which isn't ideal for Indian road conditions. Both come with 6 airbags on higher variants and are amongst India's safest cars when it comes to crash test ratings.
While both of these are lithium-ion batteries, the good thing on the Tata is that it's an LFP battery chemistry here, while on the Mahindra it is NMC. And generally looking at the hot Indian summer and the testing weather conditions, it is the LFP which is considered to be a slightly more reliable technology when it comes to battery management.
LFP batteries are said to have more charge cycles and are better suited to handle quick charging as well. However, for cold temperatures, NMC units come in more handy. And here's a quick look at the charge times of both the Nexon EV Max and Mahindra XUV400. And before we get you the verdict, here's a look at the prices of all the variants of both these SUVs. Very little separates the top variants of both these cars when it comes to prices. Of course, on the EV Max, you have many more variants to choose from. The base variants provide even greater value as the corresponding XUV trims come with a smaller battery pack and therefore lesser range.
Now, if you give scores to both these cars across different parameters, there's very little that will separate them. The XUV400 scores really well when it comes to dimensions. It gives you that big SUV feel a lot more because this is over 4 meters in length. The cabin also is quite spacious, so big families will like that. And the ride quality is slightly more comfortable when compared to the Nexon EV Max. The Nexon, on the other hand, gives you a much more modern and premium cabin, gets more features, Drivability also is much better here with those regen modes and the sport mode as well. So overall, when you compare both these cars, it is a Nexon EV Max that feels more modern, feels more like it belongs to today, and on an everyday basis you will enjoy this car probably a bit more than the 400.